I was so frustrated. I was so upset with myself. Why can't I walk? What's wrong with me? Why am I still stumbling around? Why is my hand still a claw? Why can't I type? I was so hard on myself that I was making my life miserable. It was very difficult. So every day was a struggle. The most important skill that you can have in the work world, in the business world, and in life is knowing how to observe people and not be so wrapped up in yourself. It was a very difficult process to be honest and to confess the truth. I had to confront a lot of my own weaknesses and a lot of my own problems. So, in my meditation practice, I do Zen meditation. I read a lot of books on it, although reading is not the way to practice it at all. But one of the concepts is that you are your circumstances, right? And the human disease is to separate yourself from your circumstances and to feel like something could be better.
Yeah.
I had to come to terms with, this is my body. This is who I am. Stop struggling against it, accept it and work with it. But I couldn't in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was so frustrated. I was so upset with myself. Why can't I walk? What's wrong with me? Why am I still stumbling around? Why is my hand still a claw? Why can't I type? I was so hard on myself that I was making my life miserable. It was very difficult. So every day was a struggle. Every day was, you can't be like that. You're writing a book that's about something immense, and yet you have to feel it. I have to feel everything that I write about. And so I had to struggle with myself. I had to see what was weak about me, my impatience, the fact that I'm so hard on myself. And where does that come from? Now, I can't turn into this sweet, loving creature that just accepts everything, right? It's not my nature. I am hard on myself, and that pushes me, and it has made me successful, but it went too far. So my process was, literally, I had to handwrite everything, at this day and age. But then I have this concept, it's not my concept, it's Nietzsche's amor fati, right? Love your fate. Everything happens for a reason. Handwriting, okay, it's a drag, it's a pain, but it actually is a very interesting way to think, right? People handwrote for centuries. They wrote great books. They didn't complain. They didn't know about computers. They handwrote their masterpieces, right? The brain and the hand have an incredible connection. That's how the brain evolved millions of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, because what makes humans is that brain connection between that brain and the hand, making tools, making things with the hands. That's where our genius came from. We would still be chimpanzees in the jungles of savannas of Africa if we didn't develop that brain-hand power, right? And if you study the brain, you see incredible connections between the two. Handwriting is a different way of thinking than all that.
Yeah.
And it could be a superior way of thinking, right? So it was a drag. It took forever, but in some ways it made me think very deeply. So I have all my notes and research, and I'm writing a chapter, right? And I have to handwrite it out. Then how do I edit it, right? Before, I was a very fast typist. I could edit really quickly. My speed was so fast, I could think as fast as I could type. How do I edit this? Well, I had to take two notebooks, one notebook here, one notebook there, and look at that notebook and rewrite the whole thing with my editing, right? Okay? And sometimes I'd have to take a giant sticky pad and put it on there and write over it my edits. If you saw my notebooks, you would go, my God, that's like insanity, okay? But that laboriousness calmed me down. It made me think more deeply. It made me work harder. Being able to type so fast, maybe it's not as solid. Maybe the thinking process is too glib. It really made me slow down. People are too fast now. Slowing down is a good thing. And then finally, when it got into good enough shape, I would dictate it into the computer with a dictating software, which they really suck. You'd think with all of the incredible technology we have, somebody would create a great transcription, dictation. I had the best whisper transcription, but it still sucked. Then I dictated it. Then I had to edit it with one hand typing with one hand, I tell you, when I finished the first chapter, I was like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get through this? Then I finished the second chapter and go, oh God, how am I ever going to get through this? Then the third chapter, I go, all right, I can see it's working. The fourth chapter, wow, Robert, you're actually, I don't like to say it this way, but I was kind of amazed.
Yeah.
When I look back at all that I had to do, I can almost cry. It was so difficult that I got through all 12 chapters plus the preface.
For young people today who maybe are not even going to be able to get through this whole book or Persuasion given attention spans, what do you think is the most underrated human truth that a young person should know who wants control or power?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, there's many aspects. You mean like a particular law of power, or?
Could be, or it could be something that sits with you that you're like, I want to talk about this more. I think young people should think about this more.
Well, okay. Well, what I would say is the most important skill that you can have in the work world, in the business world, and in life is knowing how to observe people and not be so wrapped up in yourself and be outer directed. So when you're in a situation like you've entered a job for the first time, your tendency is to be all insecure and think, did I say the wrong thing? Am I dressing correctly? Am I fitting in? And you're not observing, you're thinking about yourself, right? And the whole game is to be observing. It's like you're observing the world, the different games that are going on, what people are doing, what they're like, what their tastes are like, what the boss is like. There are all these levels of power going on. You want to get outside of yourself and simply observe, right? And not be thinking about yourself as much. And if you become a really good observer of people, which is something that I developed over all of these different jobs that I had, I wasn't necessarily the best person figuring out the game, but I was very observant about people and their nature and their flaws and such. If you become an astute observer of the people around you, you will have the game will be much easier to manage, right? You will know this is a person who is insecure. I cannot offend them. I cannot say the wrong thing to them. This is a person who's strong and secure. I want to be with them. I want them to mentor me. They can, you want to be able to take criticism from other people. In other words, be less insecure and be more kind of outer motivated and paying attention to people around you.
And so it sounds like sort of half the battle is sort of naming what other people are. So saying like, this happened, Robert did this thing, which tells me he cares about how he's perceived. Perception and relevance is important to Robert, so I'm going to name a person like that.
Right.
And so often when you're young, you're just thinking, I, me. You don't even know to name another.
Right.
Interesting.
Well, the thing also that you want to understand is everything is a sign. So when you're observing, another thing is enjoy this aspect of it because it's actually a lot of fun. It's like watching a movie and observing people and understanding them. But everything people do is a sign. So if they're showing up late at meetings or they're not returning your phone calls, it's not some innocent event. It means something. It's coming from some place within them. They're telling you something about themselves indirectly. If their desk is a mess, right, they can't organize their desk, it's a sign of something else going on inside them, right? If they're not returning your phone calls, on and on and on. Every little thing that people do. Sometimes when I read an email, I can sense that there's a little bit of anger as an undertone. You can sense people's tone, not just in what they say, but in how they write something, right? There's not this usual kind of polite tone. There's a little bit of a sharpness. There's a word or two that indicates that they're upset, they're angry. Every little thing that people do is a sign. You're not paranoid because it's actually a lot of fun and you're decoding what's going on because people wear masks. They smile and they say, I love your ideas, Cody, you're brilliant, you're wonderful, but inside they're thinking something else. And you have to be able to pick up all of these signs.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of us have lost a lot of that gut intuition. Like we're told to not trust your first instinct.
Yeah.
We're told to not cross the street when we feel a certain way because that could be rude to somebody else. We're sort of continuously being told to mask this feeling we get in our gut. how do you reopen that again? Like if you're sitting in a room with a bunch of people in the workplace and you're trying to figure out how to play this game, what is the mental game Robert plays to sort of pick up these undercurrents that somebody might not be able to see?
Well, I wrote a book called The Laws of Human Nature, sort of my last book, and I have a very long chapter in there about nonverbal communication, and it's an extremely important skill to develop. And what that means is people can say anything they want to with words. In fact, they generally do. They never really exactly say what's on their mind. That's how it is in the social world, because if you said what was exactly on your mind, you would be offending a lot of people, right? So we don't ever really say exactly what we feel, but our body language does not lie. It's very difficult to lie with your body language. Even the finest actors in the world find it very difficult to lie with their voice, because the voice reveals people's feelings, right? So you want to be observant. We're very good at picking these kind of cues up. So you may not realize it, but you sense that something is wrong about this person that you've just met. This is something that I talk a lot about in The Art of Seduction. I've dealt with women who've written me back. They had a gut feeling that this man that they met was wrong. There was something bad about him. They got a bad feeling from him. But what happens is you don't trust that feeling. And then, because you're not, as you say in our culture, it's not something that we value. And then we go on, we have a relationship, and then we find the hard way out that our original gut instinct was the correct one. So you want to trust these feelings. They're very valuable. We are animals. We think we're all so intellectual. We've got our frontal cortex that governs everything. But inside, we operate on emotions, on instincts, on feelings, on sensations. It's a nonverbal form of communication. It comes out in people's gestures and how they move, how they stand, right? They're at a party, you're talking to them, but their feet are pointing in a different direction. They're not so interested in you. Their eyes reveal if they're really listening to you or not. A real smile lights up the whole face. A fake smile's all kind of tight. That's wonderful. I really like, right?
Yeah.
On and on and on. It's this insane language. You can understand exactly what people are thinking. But you have to do this, to be able to reach this kind of level of understanding. You have to shut off your own mind. You have to shut off all your internal chatter. You have to observe, and you have to see, exactly try to read and detect what that particular sign means. And you won't believe how often you are very accurate with it. You can detect people's resentment, people's envy. And as I said, I wrote a whole chapter about signs that you can look at tomorrow and learn about this language. It's just that you're not paying attention and you don't value this form, because we're so verbal. We think everything has to do with words, but it doesn't.
Yeah. You've said seduction is a form of deception, but people want to be led astray.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you're a child, you were kind of really interested in stories, right? We still are interested in stories. But what you like about stories from a very early age is the fact that a writer is leading you in a certain direction, but you don't know where they're going, where they're taking you, right? Yeah. And you want to be led, and they're creating an illusion, and they're taking you along this journey, okay? And so they're seducing you through a story. And you can call it lies, you can call it fantasy, you can call it illusion. But reality is kind of harsh, it's kind of difficult. And we all want more pleasure in our life. That's why we go and see movies. That's why Hollywood is so successful. We want to be taken out of our day-to-day lives. We want to be led. We actually want to be deceived. We want illusion. We want fantasy. We want pleasure. And so you want to be the person that's supplying that fantasy, that's giving people that pleasure, because if you do, it gives you a lot of power, right?
Yeah, it's so true. and yet not said ever, which I feel like is a consistent thread through all of your books. It's where's the quiet part that we can say out loud that we shouldn't say out loud
Right.
in every single segment of our life, which I love. And it also, another line of yours that I love is, when you meet a swordsman, draw your sword. Do not recite poetry to one who is not a poet.
Those aren't my words. That's somebody else's. But yeah, it's you've got to know the people that you're dealing with, right? And you have to understand, as you said, you're naming these people, which is the way you put it, which is a very good way of putting it. And some people are vultures. Some people you can't trust. Some people are tricky. And if you treat them as if they are somebody that you can trust, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Okay? So you have to understand who the people are that you're dealing with.